Emma's just so quiet, Linda complained during one of her unannounced visits, watching my 6-month-old daughter peacefully playing with her toys. When Michael was her age, he was already crawling everywhere, getting into everything. I bit my tongue, remembering what our pediatrician said about every baby developing at their own pace. She's perfectly normal, Linda. Dr. Martinez gave her a clean bill of health just last week. Linda sniffed, a familiar look of disapproval crossing her face. Doctors these days coddle children too much. In my day, we knew how to raise active, strong babies. I focused on folding Emma's freshly laundered onesies, trying to keep my blood pressure in check. These visits had become a weekly ordeal since Emma was born. Linda would show up unannounced, armed with opinions and helpful suggestions that went against every modern parenting guideline. You know, she continued, picking up Emma, who immediately started fussing. I always gave Michael a little coffee in his bottle when he was being too sleepy. Perked him right up. I nearly dropped the laundry basket. You did what? Oh, don't look so shocked. Linda waved dismissively. A little coffee never hurt anyone. All my friends did it back then. That's why our kids grew up strong and energetic. I took Emma back, my heart racing at the mere thought. Linda, that's incredibly dangerous. Babies can't process caffeine like adults can. Nonsense. You young mothers believe everything you read on the internet. I raised 3 children, and they're all alive and well, aren't they? The conversation ended there, but I could see the wheels turning in Linda's head. That night, I warned Michael about his mother's coffee revelation. Mom wouldn't actually do that, he assured me, though I noticed he wouldn't meet my eyes. She just likes to talk about the old days. I wasn't convinced. Michael, she literally told me she used to put coffee in your bottle. Promise me you'll talk to her about not doing anything like that with Emma. Fine, I'll talk to her, he sighed, but I knew that meant he'd either forget or back down at the first sign of his mother's tears. The next week, I had to return to work. We'd been lucky to find a spot at a highly rated daycare center, but it was only part-time. Linda had practically begged to watch Emma the other 2 days, and Michael had convinced me it would be fine. She raised us, didn't she? He'd said. The first day went okay. The second day, I came home early from work to find Linda in the kitchen, preparing Emma's bottle. Something made me pause in the doorway. Maybe it was mother's intuition, or maybe it was the guilty way Linda jumped when she saw me. Oh, you're home early, she said, quickly moving to block the counter. I was just getting Emma's afternoon bottle ready. I stepped closer, my nose catching a familiar scent. Is that coffee I smell? Don't be silly, Linda laughed, but it was forced. I was just having a cup myself. I moved past her to look at the bottle she prepared. The formula had a distinctly darker tint than usual. My hands shook as I picked it up and unscrewed the cap. The coffee smell was unmistakable. It's just a tiny bit, Linda defended, dropping the act. Emma's been so sleepy all day, barely moving. She needs something to perk her up, make her more active like a normal baby. I felt the room spin. How many times have you done this? Linda's silence was all the answer I needed. I rushed to check on Emma, finding her in her playpen, unusually fussy and agitated. Her little hands were shaking as she reached for me, and her heart seemed to be racing when I picked her up. How many times? I demanded again, my voice breaking. Just a few times this week, Linda admitted, having the decency to look somewhat ashamed. And she's been much more active. You see, mother knows best. I was already dialing 911 with trembling fingers. Active? She's having caffeine jitters. She's a 6-month-old baby, not a college student pulling an all-nighter. You're overreacting, Linda protested, trying to take Emma from me. Michael never had any problems with it. I pulled away from her, clutching Emma closer. Don't you dare touch her. Michael never having problems with it doesn't make it safe. Do you have any idea how dangerous this is? The ambulance arrived within minutes. As the EMTs checked Emma's vitals, I called Michael, my voice shaking with rage and fear. Linda stood in the corner, alternating between defending her actions and crying about how ungrateful I was for her help. But this is how we did things in my day, she wailed as the EMTs prepared to transport Emma to the hospital. You young mothers think you know everything, but we raise our babies just fine without all these modern rules and regulations. I turned to her, finally letting my anger show. Your day was 40 years ago, Linda. And just because your children survived your dangerous practices doesn't make them right. Now move aside. I'm taking my daughter to the emergency room, and you better pray she's okay." As I climbed into the ambulance with Emma, I could hear Linda on the phone with Michael, already spinning her version of events. But this time, I had proof. The bottle with its coffee-tainted formula was safely sealed in a Ziploc bag, ready for testing. This wasn't just about a parenting disagreement anymore. This was about my baby's safety, and I was done being the polite, accommodating daughter-in-law. The emergency room was a blur of activity. Dr. Patel, a pediatric specialist, immediately ordered blood tests while nurses monitored Emma's elevated heart rate. My baby girl was crying inconsolably, her tiny body trembling. Each whimper felt like a knife in my heart. Michael burst through the ER doors, his face pale with worry. "What happened?" "Mom said you're overreacting about some old family recipe." "Family recipe?" I cut him off, my voice sharp enough to make him step back. "Your mother put coffee in our baby's formula. Not once, but multiple times this week. Look at your daughter, Michael. Really look at her." He moved closer to the hospital crib where Emma lay connected to monitors. Her usual peaceful demeanor was gone, replaced by agitation and distress. The steady beeping of the heart monitor told its own story. "But Mom wouldn't," he started, then fell silent as Dr. Patel approached with the test results. "Mrs. Torres." The doctor's expression was grave. "We found significant levels of caffeine in Emma's system. For an infant her age, this is extremely dangerous. It can lead to an irregular heartbeat, seizures, and, in severe cases, even more serious complications." I watched the color drain from Michael's face as the doctor continued explaining the risks. Linda chose that moment to make her entrance, still clutching her designer handbag like a shield. "Oh, stop being so dramatic," she announced, trying to take control of the situation. "I barely used any coffee, just a splash to help her be more active, like I did with all my children." Dr. Patel turned to her, his professional demeanor tinged with barely concealed anger. "Ma'am, are you saying you deliberately gave caffeine to a 6-month-old infant?" "Well, yes," Linda replied, oblivious to the horror on the medical staff's faces. "It's an old family tradition. My mother did it. I did it with my children, and they all turned out fine." "Mom." Michael finally found his voice. "This isn't the 1980s anymore. You could have seriously hurt Emma." "Don't you raise your voice at me, Michael James Harrison." Linda's face reddened. "I was trying to help. Emma is always so sluggish compared to how you were at her age. I was worried about her development." "Sluggish?" I couldn't hold back anymore. "She's meeting all her milestones perfectly. The only person with a problem here is you, Linda. You couldn't stand that we weren't raising her your way, so you took matters into your own hands." Dr. Patel cleared his throat. "Mrs. Harrison, what you did was extremely dangerous. Infants cannot metabolize caffeine the way adults do. You're very fortunate we caught this before Emma experienced more serious symptoms." "More serious?" Michael asked, his voice shaking. "Caffeine toxicity in infants can lead to seizures, severe dehydration, and in extreme cases, it can be fatal," Dr. Patel explained. "We'll need to keep Emma overnight for observation and to flush the caffeine from her system." Linda's tosad finally cracked. "Fatal? But I only wanted." "You only wanted control," I finished for her. "You couldn't stand that we were raising Emma differently than you raised your kids. So you decided to prove you knew better, and you could have killed her doing it." Michael walked over to the hospital crib, gently touching Emma's hand. Our daughter had finally fallen into an exhausted sleep, though the monitors still showed an elevated heart rate. When he turned back to his mother, his eyes were filled with tears. "Get out," he said quietly. "What?" Linda stepped toward him. "Michael, sweetheart, you can't mean." "Get out." His voice was stronger now. "You endangered my daughter. You went behind our backs and gave a baby coffee because you couldn't stand not being in control. Get out of this room, get out of our lives, and don't come back until you understand what you did wrong." Linda's mouth opened and closed several times, but for once, no words came out. She looked around the room, probably expecting someone to defend her, but found only stern faces. Even the nurse checking Emma's IV was glaring at her. "Fine," she finally snapped, gathering her things. "I try to help, to share my experience as a mother who successfully raised 3 children, and this is the thanks I get." You'll regret this. Both of you. As she stormed out, her heels clicking angrily on the hospital floor, I saw Michael's shoulders sag. I moved to stand beside him, both of us watching our daughter's fitful sleep. I should have listened to you, he whispered. All those times you said Mom was overstepping, that her old school methods were dangerous. I should have stood up to her. I took his hand, squeezing it gently. You're standing up to her now. That's what matters. I'll call the daycare center tomorrow, he said. See if they can take Emma full-time. No more chances, no more family help that comes with strings attached. A nurse entered with forms for us to sign, documenting everything that had happened. The doctor wants these for the records, she explained, then hesitated before adding, and in case you want to pursue any legal action. Michael and I exchanged looks. Legal action hadn't even occurred to us yet, but now that she mentioned it, my phone buzzed with incoming messages from Linda's other children, Michael's siblings, all demanding to know why we were abusing their poor mother over a little coffee. I silenced the phone and turned back to what really mattered, our daughter, finally sleeping peacefully as the IV fluids helped flush the caffeine from her tiny system. The family drama could wait. Right now, Emma's recovery was all that mattered, and I had a feeling the real battle was just beginning. The weeks following Emma's hospital stay were a storm of family drama. Linda had mobilized her support network, turning Michael's siblings against us with a twisted version of events. According to her, I was an overprotective first-time mom who had weaponized a harmless family tradition to keep her from her granddaughter. Did you know Mom used to put coffee in all our bottles? Michael's sister Kate demanded during an angry phone call. And we're all fine. Surviving something dangerous doesn't make it safe, I replied, watching Emma play happily in her bouncer, finally back to her normal, peaceful self. Would you give your cat chocolate just because it stole some once and lived? That's different, Kate protested, but I could hear the uncertainty creeping into her voice. Is it? Because Dr. Patel would disagree. I'm sending you his report about caffeine toxicity in infants. Read it, then call me back if you still think your mother did nothing wrong. I hung up and turned to Michael, who was documenting everything in a notebook. After speaking with a family lawyer, we decided to keep records of all interactions with Linda and her enablers, not because we planned to sue, but because we needed protection from her version of events. Kate, he asked, not looking up from his writing. Yep. Just like the others, defending your mom without knowing the facts. I sighed, sitting beside him. Have you heard from her? Mom? Oh yeah. He showed me his phone, displaying dozens of missed calls and messages. She's switching between apologizing and threatening to report us for alienating her from her granddaughter. A week later, the family meeting we'd requested was set at our house. Linda arrived first, followed by Kate and Michael's brother Tom. They sat stiffly on our couch while I set up the doctor's report, hospital records, and a video presentation on our TV. Before anyone speaks, I announced, we're going to watch something. The presentation began with Dr. Patel explaining caffeine toxicity in infants, followed by security footage from our nanny cam showing Linda mixing coffee into Emma's bottles on multiple occasions. The final slide showed Emma's hospital readings, heart rate, blood pressure, and caffeine levels all dangerously elevated. Oh my God, Kate whispered, her face pale. Mom, you did this multiple times. Linda shifted uncomfortably. I was trying to help. Emma was so inactive compared to how you all were. Because that's normal baby behavior, I cut in. Not every baby needs to be climbing the walls at 6 months old. I raised 3 children. Linda began her familiar refrain, but this time, Tom interrupted. Stop, Mom, just stop. He ran his hands through his hair, looking troubled. You know what this reminds me of? When my son was born prematurely and you kept trying to overfeed him against the doctor's orders. We caught you then too, but we let it slide because Mom knows best. And remember when you gave Kate's daughter solid food at 3 months? Michael added. We've all been ignoring these red flags for years. Linda burst into tears, real ones this time, not her usual manipulative sobs. I just wanted to be needed. To show that my experience matters. Everything's so different now, with all these new rules. I feel obsolete. The room fell silent. For the first time, I felt a flicker of understanding, though it didn't excuse her actions. Linda, I said carefully, your experience does matter. but it needs to be updated. If you want to be involved in Emma's life or in any of your grandchildren's lives, you need to accept that parenting knowledge has evolved. What was common 40 years ago might now be known to be dangerous. We're not asking you to forget everything you know, Michael added gently. We're asking you to learn with us, to trust that we're making informed decisions for our children, and to respect boundaries, Tom chimed in. No more going behind parents' backs. Linda dabbed at her eyes, looking around the room. And if I do all that, if I take some grandparenting classes and promise to follow your rules, then we start rebuilding trust, I said firmly, slowly, with supervision at first. But you have to prove you understand why what you did was wrong, and show us you can change. To everyone's surprise, Linda nodded. I'll do it. I don't want to lose my family. Tell me what classes to take, what books to read. I'll learn. 3 months later, Linda proudly showed us her completion certificate from a modern grandparenting course. She joined online support groups for grandparents adjusting to contemporary parenting methods and even started therapy to address her control issues. Emma was 9 months old now, happily crawling at her own pace and thriving. Linda's supervised visits had gone well, with no attempts to override our parenting choices. She'd learned to ask questions instead of making assumptions, to offer support instead of criticism. You know, she said during a recent visit, watching Emma contentedly stacking blocks. I was so worried about her being inactive, but look at how focused she is. That's a sign of intelligence, isn't it? I smiled, recognizing the genuine effort to understand. It is. Every baby develops differently, and Emma's right on track for her age. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but as I watched Linda reading baby development books instead of pushing outdated methods, I knew we'd made the right choice. Sometimes, the hardest part of parenting isn't dealing with the children. It's helping the grandparents grow alongside us.